Harp on Sports, the Bar, podcast, media, audio, and radio network. What do we have in store for you on this edition of the program? A little Sunday ticket tally, $14 billion. The NFL is going to have to pay out because of what happened with DirecTV and overcharging in certain markets. That's a big chunk. Did the math on this, $440 million per team. Owners don't lose money like this without recouping it somehow. Buckle up. We're going to tell you what the NFL is going to do. Also, former NFL star, former Major League Baseball star, Bo Jackson gets inducted into the Kansas City Royals Hall of Fame this past weekend. And it got me thinking, the what could-haves. What could-haves? The ones we didn't get in terms of greatness because of injury. So we're going to go through Major League Baseball, the NFL, professional sports, give you a pair from each league, the what could have beens. And also, going to wrap with a little parade power. Tip of the hat to the Florida Panthers in the Miami-Dade County Sunrise area. That's a heck of a display that they put on over the course of the last 4 or 5 days. And it got me thinking, watching their parade was just completely awesome. The 5 most intriguing potential championship parades we could ever get. I'm going to tell you the 5 cities that if their teams win a championship, watch out. So we're going to dive into that as well. So there we go. Harp on Sports, the Bar, podcast, media, audio, radio network. Follow, share, like, subscribe at Harp on Sports Twitter, at Harp on Sports Instagram, Harp on Sports, the auditory route, Buzzsprout, Spotify, Apple Podcast, Harp on Sports Facebook page, Harp on Sports YouTube channel, and of course, harponsports.com. Going to start off with the Sunday ticket in the NFL because this is going to impact the league. This is going to impact each individual team. When you're talking about $14 billion as a league, you can sit there and say, well, they have plenty of money. Gang, that's 2 television contracts. That's monstrous. And of course, you know by now what they were doing is they were overcharging. I don't want to say violating antitrust laws, but they were their business practices weren't exactly legit and clean. Now that's a big chunk of change. So now what? Now what? Well, each team cuts a check for $440 million. Is that what's going to happen? The NFL can't absorb all of this. So the answer is this. It's not about just paying and cutting a check. It's about recouping that money. Well, how do they recoup that money? Well, they need to create more revenue. I'm going to tell you what they're going to do. They're going to do a couple things, actually. You know, there's going to be a push for an 18th game. That's the easiest. You had an extra regular season game. You renegotiate your TV deals. You can make a couple extra $100 million, if not more, $1 billion more. You're just doing that. And you recoup this money. And think about this, $14 billion. This is 4 franchises total value. There we go. That's another option. So the easiest thing to do is add extra games. It speeds that process up. The other thing you can do is you can expand the league. This is going to put everything on the table. And it's not enough to sit there and say they have plenty of money. It's not about that. Billionaires do not become billionaires because they just say, oh, whatever, I can afford a couple $1 billion. When you're talking about $500 million per team in this league, they're going to want that money back. Considering these guys fight, claw, scratch, do whatever they can to have cities pick up 60-65% of stadium costs. You think these ownership groups are going to want to deal out $300-400 million? It's a good thing the city of Jacksonville, it's a good thing even Carolina, Charlotte got these deals done. I don't know what this is going to mean for Kansas City. Because now that's $440 million the Hunt family has to dole out. Easiest way to do it is look around and go, let's add an extra game. Other thing you can do, just because of expansion fees, which are what, about $30-40 million per team, is that you expand the league. I'm telling you, gang, these teams aren't going to sit around and not do anything to recoup this money. Add games, add teams. Now you have to share your revenue down the line, but with each city kicking in, what, $30-40 million per team? I mean, you can make this money back. Well, you can make half of it back, close to half of it back. You can sit there and say, oh, that's ridiculous. Where are you going to find two? You got to add 4 teams. You can't add 2, you got to have 4, right? Because you got to balance out the leagues. You'll have 6 divisions of 6 at that point. Just by adding 2, you had 17 in each league. You can't do that. It's going to be a multiple of 4. It's got to be a quadrant. Doesn't matter where. From San Antonio? Doesn't matter where. But that's another option. You add more teams. You add more games. The other option is you create another night of the week for another TV package. Welcome to Friday Night Football. Welcome to Wednesday Night Football. I'm telling you, this is where we're going. It's not going to be just $5 more per ticket. It's not going to be, we're going to add some more, we're going to charge a little more for parking. People that own things, management, they pass those costs along to the consumers, don't they? Not if they don't have to. So you can sell sponsorships. You can do all sorts of things like this. Be ready for more European games. Be ready for more international games. Anything you can do to make more money. And they're not going to want to make this $440 million per team back over the course of 15, 20 years. They're going to want it now. How do we make up this money now? It's going to be a rough road, and there's going to be multiple things on the table for multiple franchises to get this done. Other options include what? I mentioned more international games. Could you see as many as, right now we're talking about each team playing at least 1 international game a year. If that schedule goes to 18, you're going to see more of it. Those are your options. What are your other options? And this is where you kind of look at each other. It's like, we don't need to expand the league. We don't need a Friday night NFL game. We don't need more games. Well, guess what? That's almost $500 million per team. It's coming from somewhere. All right, fine. We'll double your tickets. I can't afford to go anyway. You ready for $13 hot dogs? Owners are going to... There is a little bit of silver lining here. Ownership groups are going to want to do more big events in big stadiums, which we should have anyway. We look the road up the road here at Everbank. You have Monster Jam, and you've had concerts and the Rolling Stones, and you've had major but get ready for more of that stuff. Get ready for more of that. Always a chance to create new realms of cash flow. And to me, the easiest thing to do is add a game. The toughest thing, the next easiest thing to do really is play one of those, add another international game. Because it's already built in. Oh, we're going to Rio de Janeiro. Oh, Australia. Oh, just can make more money that way. What else can you do? Well, you just, instead of playing Thursday, we're going to play a Friday night game now. There's $400-500 extra million there that you can bring in with a new TV contract. It's the way it's going to go. It's just the way it's going to go. And then the thing that's probably the most difficult thing to do, but would make you the most money, is expanding the league. So buckle up. Sunday ticket tally. Get ready to start seeing checks and boxes. The NFL's going to start doing things to make this money back. And it's not as much as raising the rate of each subscriber $5 for Sunday ticket. Doesn't work that way. It's going to be more. It's going to be big measures coming up. Big push to get this money back. Again, that's the value of what? 4 or 5 franchises? That's a lot. It's a lot of money there, gang. $14 billion. From that to this. Over the weekend, Bo Jackson enshrined, if you will, into the Royals Hall of Fame. Good for him. And that's the guy that everybody points to. The what if, right? The what if. The fact that that guy was a Pro Bowler and an All-Star. And who knows what he would have eventually picked as his sport. We know Dion was doing both at a pretty high level. We always point back to that World Series. Was it 93? 92? That if the Braves would have won that World Series, Dion was hit like 480 in it. Probably have been the MVP. Dion's a Hall of Famer. The National Football League. Which one would have Bo eventually picked? We know Brian Jordan picked Major League Baseball over the NFL. We know Kyler Murray picked the NFL over baseball, but he never got to the bigs. So this multi-sport star, what would he eventually pick? Who knows? But he's the biggest what if, isn't he? Just because he did both. But that got me thinking, going through and looking at big sports, the what ifs, the what could have beens. And I'm looking at strictly injuries now. You know, Eric Lindros's career is cut short because of concussions. No doubt about it. Hockey, that's the one that jumps off the board to me the biggest. He still had a decent career, but, I mean, probably lost 6-7 years. But still got into his 30s. A guy that also did that in baseball, or in another sport, baseball, was Dustin Pedroia. Dustin Pedroia would have 3,000 hits, 200-plus home runs as a second baseman. He'd have been that guy. Injuries derailed him too. But those guys got a decade of their career in before they got hit. They got a decade of their career in, or close to a decade of their career in before they got hit. So it's like, okay, well, you got a decade in. And some guys didn't even get to that much before it's like, oh my, what could have been? I already mentioned baseball. The one that to me, that jumps off the page the most is Mark Pryor. He dealt with a couple baseball players, Mark Pryor and Kerry Wood. The what ifs, the what could have beens. So those are the guys in baseball. In baseball, it's a lot easier to find them just because, you know, Steven Strasburg wins a World Series. Who knows what would have happened with him, his arm injuries. Baseball, you can find them up and down the board. Up and down the board. I mentioned Bo already. Just because baseball, you can hurt your arm and then it's over. So, damaging. So those are the ones I came up with in baseball. Football, it's a little bit trickier. You know, plenty of concussions to go around, plenty of other injuries to go around. The two I wrote down in the NFL were Steve Ettman and Sterling Sharp. Sterling Sharp, his first 5 years with Green Bay, he's a 4-time Pro Bowler. Shannon always sits there and says, look, I'm in the Hall of Fame, but I'm not even the best football player in my family. Who knows what we'd have seen with Sterling if Sterling could have stayed healthy. Steve Ettman as well. Drafted by the Colts, just too many injuries. Guy was a beast. Just could not stay healthy. But yeah, Sterling Sharp's the one to me that, and then you go back to Gale Sayers. Yeah, there's guys up and down the list that you can have. Andrew Luck could not stay healthy. And then you get to later in their career, Troy Aikman retired before the age of, 34 is when Troy retired. Troy didn't make it to 34, 32, 33. But then again, I put him in the Dustin Pedroia camp where he got Eric Lindros, he got a decade in the league, so a little bit different. But Sterling Sharp and Steve Ettman in the NFL to me. And then, you know, basketball, I've got them on the same team, the same franchise. One right after the next. The first one is Greg Oden, and the second one's Brandon Roy. People forget about Brandon Roy. Brandon Roy's a solid basketball player. First 5-6 years in the league. Degenerative knee problems. Same thing with Greg Oden. Just could not stay healthy. Could not maintain the health that they needed to maintain. So you go up and down and find injuries across the board for different genres and different, yeah, they're everywhere. They're everywhere in a variety of sports. But the ones that pop off to me, both guys in Portland. Brandon Roy, Greg Oden, baseball. I mentioned Dustin Pedroia, but he got a good decade in the league. Mark Pryor, Kerry Wood, NHL. I mentioned Eric Lindros, NFL, Sterling Sharp, Steve Ettman, and they're all, there's tons of them. Altoon, there's guys all over the place. that their careers get cut short because of these things, whatever ailment they are. But Bo's the poster guy for it, right? Because dude could have been a Hall of Famer in both sports if he chose. I don't know if Dion could have been a Hall of Famer in. It'd been tough for Dion to be a Hall of Famer in baseball, although it could have been. Could have been easier for both of those guys to be Hall of Famers in the NFL. Isn't that weird? But I guess the NFL puts 6, 7 guys in every year, where baseball puts 2 or 3 guys in every year. So it makes more sense going down that path. But anyway, there's the what could have been or what we almost got. Because it's really too bad when you get right down to it. And you can go on and on with these lists. Patrick Willis decided to call it a career early. It's just too much. Luke Kuechly calls it a career early. You're seeing that a lot more now. But back then, it wasn't that they had. It's weird because now with everything that we know with CTE and concussions, it's like, okay, I'm going to stop. Back then, they kept playing. Then in the 80s and 90s, you really had to get banged up for you to go, okay, that's it. I'm done. But anyway, congratulations to Bo Jackson. One to wrap with this. The Miami-Dade County area, Florida Panthers fans, I'll tell you what, the Panthers in this parade, I give them a ton of credit. I can't think of a team, an organization that won a championship that's partied like this in a long time. The Bucks had their, parade in the Bay and through the Lombardi Trophy, Gronk, and I get that it was fun, but these guys are just crazy. Ovechkin and the Capitals were this way too. You go back and look, parades were they're such a bigger deal in the 70s and 80s, even into the 90s than they are today. You look at the one in Boston, it's like, oh, okay, nice. The one in Atlanta a couple years ago is like, geez. Is that the one that they're going down the road like 30 miles an hour? So much for a parade. But as I was watching this, I'm like, this is awesome. Tip of the hat to the people of Miami. Sunrise and the surrounding areas. Good for them. But it did get me thinking. This is interesting. I was trying to envision, the parades that I remember, championships and cities. And again, they used to be such a bigger deal. But the ones that, to me, that just jump off the top of my head are, come on. The Rangers in New York in the mid-90s, ticker tape, the whole 9 yards. You pick any parade in New York, right? The first World Series win for the Red Sox in 2004 with Damon and those guys on the duck boats. Of course, the Cubs winning the World Series and the zoo that was. Finally getting over the hump for Chicago. And, you can go through and pick pretty much any city. When Dallas wins championships, basically if you have a city center and you win a title, it's remarkable. Do you have a parade? That's pretty cool. But those are the ones that I can think of. Canyon of Heroes in New York, obviously, is just one of those that just jumps off the map. But I was sitting here thinking, I was going to try and find 5 cities and 5 different franchises that if they'd win a title, watch out. To me, these would be the 5 biggest parade parties in sports. Now, I did create a rule with this. I can't use the same city twice, and you're going to see why. Because there's 2 cities I think could end up here multiple times, but I limited myself to the bigger parade of that city. I wanted to start off, and at number 5, I put the Toronto Maple Leafs. If the Leafs could ever win a Stanley Cup, what they would do in Toronto, wow. It's been 6 decades since they won one. To me, that's the one. In hockey, that's the one. The Canadians won one in the 90s. If Edmonton won one, that's great. They've done it. Vancouver, they go crazy and cause all sorts of havoc when they lose. So I've seen that nonsense. Ottawa, yeah, sure. Calgary, yeah. But if Toronto won, it's one of my top 5 biggest parade parties. Number 4, I went with the Knicks, and the reason I think a Knicks parade in New York would be a zoo. But we've seen Yankees parades. It's been 40 years, but we did see a Mets parade. We've seen Rangers parades. I just, and the Islanders haven't won, but they've come close. So I just think a Knicks parade in New York, more so than the Islanders, would be nice. It'd be kind of cool. I don't know what the Nets type of net. You wouldn't go into Manhattan for that, would you? You'd stay in Brooklyn. But then again, Long Island wouldn't either. But a Knicks parade, wow. So 5 Leafs, 4 Knicks. Okay? I've got 3 the Lions. Think where we are on this list with the Lions in terms of passion parades. After seeing Miami, these are my passion parades. 3 would be the Lions. Detroit would go crazy. They go absolutely insane. 2, I've got the Browns. And when I mention like the Browns, think about where I'm going with this. You could have had the Guardians as well. Guardians haven't won a World Series in 80 years. But I think the bigger of the parades would be the Browns parade. If you're going to do top 5, let's say the Guardians won a World Series, and then the Browns won a Super Bowl the next year. I don't know if the Browns won, I don't know what the Guardians parade would be like next. We saw it kind of with Cleveland and LeBron, one for the land. But if the Browns won, watch out. That's number 2. And to me, the biggest American sports parade you'd ever have is if the Buffalo Bills won a Super Bowl. I don't know what you do. I don't know what they do. The Jews are jumping through tables when they go 6-11. The Bills became the Bills Mafia when they had 9 losing seasons in 10 years. Can you imagine what would happen if they'd win a Super Bowl? What that parade would look like? It'd be people jumping off in buildings onto tables. It'd be insane. It'd be crazy. I don't know what they would do. I don't. You'd have to have the National Guard in there if they ever won it. So power parades, if we ever get championships for these franchises, what we saw in Miami was awesome when Sunrise with the Panthers. I think the 5 craziest ones you would see would be the Maple Leafs at 5, the Knicks at 4, the Lions at 3, the Browns at 2, and the Bills at 1. Those would be my 5 parades that I would look forward to the most. Harp on Sports, the Bar, podcast, media, audio, radio network. Follow, share, like, subscribe. At Harp on Sports Twitter, at Harp on Sports Instagram. Harp on Sports. You can pick us up via the auditory route. Buzzsprout, Spotify, Apple Podcast. Harp on Sports, of course, YouTube channel. Harp on Sports, the Facebook page. And, of course, harponsports.com. Remember, stay clean, stay focused, stay strong. Frankenstein. Have fun with your friends.